Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a loop, where certain situations in your life keep repeating no matter what you do? Maybe you set your sights on a goal, only for it to always slip just out of reach. Or maybe there's a feeling of emptiness inside you, like there's some missing puzzle piece that, if only you could find it, would finally make everything make sense. Well, what I'm about to share with you might just be that missing piece. Carl Jung, one of the most influential minds in psychology, believed that nothing in life happens by accident. When you really let that idea sink in, you start to see your life in a completely new light. You begin to find answers to questions that might have haunted you for years. The day you were born was so much more than just the start of your life. It was the beginning of a deep, mysterious connection between you and the universe itself. Your birth wasn't random or meaningless. It carries hidden clues about who you really are, what motivates you, and the kinds of challenges you're likely to face along the way. Now, I know some people might roll their eyes and call this superstition, but Jung showed us that this idea goes beyond just wishful thinking. He talked about something called the collective unconscious, a hidden network of symbols and archetypes that connect each of us to something much bigger than ourselves. Let's pause for a second. How many times have you noticed the same signs showing up in your life, only to brush them off? How often have you felt like nobody really gets you, but you can't put your finger on why? Maybe you've tried to fill that inner void with achievements, relationships, or distractions, but it never really works for long. That nagging sense of something's missing often comes down to one simple but profound truth. You're not living in alignment with your true nature. And the key to reconnecting with that nature, believe it or not, lies in the moment you were born. For thousands of years, cultures all around the world have believed that the moment of birth reveals essential truths about our path in life, not because everything is rigidly predetermined, but because we're each part of a greater pattern or design. Think about the seasons. Each one has its own mood and meaning. Winter is for reflection, spring for renewal, summer for growth, autumn for introspection. Your birth carries a unique energy, too. It quietly shapes your personality, your choices, your passions, even your fears. The problem is, if you don't know how this energy works, you might accidentally fight against it instead of using it to your advantage. Jung discovered that many of our deepest conflicts come from being disconnected from what he called universal archetypes. These aren't just abstract concepts. They're powerful patterns that shape how we see the world and how we act. He believed that the month you were born in actually reflects which of these archetypal energies are strongest in you and, in turn, what gifts and challenges you'll keep bumping into. Picture it like a compass. If you don't know how to use it, you'll end up wandering in circles. But if you learn to read the signs, suddenly your path becomes clearer. Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to lead with ease, while others shine through creativity or deep empathy? It's not random. Everyone is born with a specific energy. Some people are natural pioneers, bold, driven, always ready to take on a challenge and inspire those around them. Others are deeply in tune with emotions, picking up on what everyone else is feeling. They're natural healers, offering comfort and insight. And then there are those who are drawn to life's big questions, always searching for deeper meaning and spiritual connection. But what happens if you ignore your own nature and try to become someone you're not? Life starts to feel like an uphill climb, like you're swimming against the current. You could plant a sunflower in the wrong kind of soil, and no matter how hard it tries, it just won't thrive. Maybe that's how you're feeling right now, trying to fit yourself into a role that wasn't made for you, while your real potential is still hidden beneath the surface. Jung believed that real transformation starts the moment we stop running away from ourselves and start looking inward. Self-awareness, to him, was like flipping on a light in a pitch-dark room. Suddenly, the things that used to scare us become understandable. That's exactly what I'm inviting you to do right now. Take an honest look at yourself and ask, what is my birth month trying to tell me about who I am? Just imagine for a moment that your birth wasn't an accident, but part of a larger pattern. That every challenge has meaning, and your strengths aren't just random quirks. The secret is learning to read the signs and use them to shape the life you want, because everything you need is already inside you. You just haven't learned how to unlock it yet. Throughout history, Great thinkers like Jung recognized that the universe speaks to us in symbols and patterns. People used to turn to the stars for answers, but today, we can find those answers within ourselves. Have you noticed that certain seasons affect you more than others? Some months make you feel alive and energized, while others slow you down. That's not a coincidence. It's the energy of your birth moment quietly shaping your journey. But don't get the wrong idea, this doesn't mean your fate is set in stone. Actually, it's the opposite. Jung taught that by becoming aware of these patterns, we can break free from repeating cycles and steer our own lives. It's not about fortune-telling or guessing the future. It's about understanding yourself better and using that insight to make conscious choices. So before we go any further, ask yourself, what are you really looking for? Maybe you don't know the answer yet, but I promise you, if you stick with this, by the end of our journey you'll see yourself in a new way. You'll realize that every experience, good or bad, has been part of a deeper pattern. And when you finally understand that pattern, even your darkest moments will start to reveal their hidden lessons. So if you've ever felt like there's something inside you waiting to be unlocked, keep watching. What you're about to learn could be the key to discovering your hidden potential. Because, as Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Now is the time to take the wheel. Now that you've seen the connection, get ready. In the next part, we'll dive even deeper, exploring how the specific energy of your birth month influences your emotions, your decisions, and even the kinds of opportunities that show up in your life. This journey is just getting started. Have you ever felt trapped in an invisible loop, like no matter how much you try to grow, you somehow end up circling back to where you started? Maybe it's a relationship that never quite works out, a job that seems perfect but leaves you feeling empty, or a nagging sense that you just don't fit in, as if everyone else is moving forward and you're quietly drifting in the opposite direction. If any of that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. Millions of people are stuck in these loops, often without ever understanding why. But Jung left us a powerful clue. What we often call fate might actually be part of a bigger, cosmic dance. And here's the twist: you're not just a dancer. In this story, you're also the choreographer. Jung believed that the patterns shaping our lives aren't random or meaningless. They're actually part of a deeper relationship between the individual and the universe. He once compared human life to a river. The river flows, winding through rocks, bends, and obstacles. No matter what, it finds a way forward. But the course of that river isn't random. It's shaped by forces both inside and outside of us, often invisible but always leaving their mark. One of those marks is the moment you were born. And I'm not just talking about planets or moon phases. There's something even deeper at play: the archetypal energy that was at its peak when you took your very first breath. Let me tell you a story about Anna. She's 48, a literature teacher. If you looked at her life from the outside, you'd think everything was peaceful: stable job, cozy home, two grown kids, and a supportive husband. But inside, Anna carries a heaviness few people can see. Ever since her early 20s, she's felt like she's always running out of time, chasing some ideal that always seems just out of reach. Every time things start to look up, something trips her up: a tough boss, an unexpected bill, or that old familiar voice whispering, "You're not good enough," making her doubt even her biggest accomplishments. She finds herself wondering, why does everything have to be so hard? Is this how it's always going to be? What Anna doesn't realize is that much of this struggle is actually tied to the energy of the month. She was born April. April is a month of fire, carrying the archetypal energy of pioneers and conquerors, people driven to act, to build, to lead. But as Jung pointed out, every energy has a shadow. In Anna's case, that shadow comes out as impatience and harsh self-criticism. She always feels like she must be in motion, constantly doing more, but it never feels like enough. This pattern lives deep in her subconscious, shaping her choices and reactions, especially when things get tough. But here's the crucial insight: Anna isn't doomed to repeat this cycle forever. What Jung taught is that we have the power to transform these patterns by becoming aware of them. Anna can learn to balance her drive with moments of stillness and reflection, She can realize that she doesn't have to carry the world on her shoulders. And sometimes, true strength is knowing when to pause. This is the cosmic dance, the balance between the opposing forces inside us. Now, let's look at Roberto. He's 57 and has spent his life as a mechanical engineer. He's the classic provider, always putting others first. Since he was young, he believed that success meant financial stability and professional respect. That belief served him well for years. He built a solid career, raised his kids, and secured his family's future. But now, as retirement approaches, Roberto feels strangely empty. The achievements that once made him proud now feel hollow. He finds himself asking, what does any of this really mean? Roberto was born in May, a month connected to the search for stability and the bridge between the material and spiritual worlds. For most of his life, he lived in line with the positive energy of that month, creating a strong foundation for his family. But as with all energies, there's a shadow side. For Roberto, it's an overwhelming need for control and a deep fear of the unknown. Now, faced with the uncertainty of retirement, he realizes he's spent so much time building a secure life that he never stopped to ask, what actually makes me happy? Jung said that the unconscious always finds a way to express itself through dreams, emotions, or life events that seem out of our hands. In Roberto's case, that emptiness isn't a failure. It's an invitation to explore a side of himself he's ignored. He has to learn to let go of some control, accept that not everything can be planned, and trust that, sometimes, the unknown brings beauty. Do any of these stories sound familiar? Maybe you, too, have been walking a path that once made sense, but no longer fits. Maybe you've ignored signals from your body, your mind, or your heart until they became too loud to ignore. But here's the good news, it's never too late to rewrite your story. The cosmic dance Jung described isn't a prison. It's an invitation to discover who you really are. Understanding the energies at play in your life lets you use them as allies. If you were born in January, you might realize your urge to lead doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. If you were born in July, you might see that your deep empathy doesn't have to drain you. It can be a powerful force for good, as long as you set healthy boundaries. Jung often said that self-awareness doesn't free us from life's difficulties, but it gives us the tools to handle them with wisdom. When you recognize the patterns in your life, something powerful shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start to see yourself as the author of your own story. What once felt impossible to change suddenly starts to make sense, and you realize you actually do have the power to choose differently. Think back to a time when everything seemed to fall apart. Maybe it was a breakup, losing a job, or a health scare. In that moment, you probably asked yourself, why is this happening to me? But what if those moments weren't punishments, but invitations? Invitations to explore parts of yourself you've neglected, to grow in ways you never thought possible. The cosmic dance of life isn't about dodging hardship, it's about finding balance, facing challenges, and learning from them. That balance starts when you understand the energy that's been with you since birth. It doesn't matter if you're 35 or 65, self-awareness has no expiration date. The deeper you're willing to look inside, the closer you come to living a life that really fits you. So, are you ready to take a closer look and discover what energies are guiding your journey? Because once you make that choice, the cosmic dance stops being a mystery and starts becoming your greatest ally. And in the next part, we'll talk about how to actually spot these specific energies in your life and how to use them to create real change. Jung said, the unconscious is always speaking to those who are willing to listen. Are you ready to listen? Have you ever stopped to consider how the environment you were born into has shaped the person you've become? I'm not talking just about the physical place, but the timing itself, the season, the weather, the quality of light, even the background noise or silence of that moment. All of those things became part of your story, written quietly into your subconscious from the very beginning. The moment you were born, the world was in motion, and every detail, sunshine or storm, the hush of dawn or bustle of midday, helped shape your very first impression of life. That moment was much more than just a biological event. It was a silent invitation to a unique, symbolic journey. Carl Jung believed the collective unconscious wasn't something mystical or out of reach, but a real psychological force. It connects all people through universal symbols, what he called archetypes. And your birth was the first thread in that connection. The instant you took your first breath, it was as if an invisible thread was woven between your inner world and everything around you. Most people don't realize that if we're unaware of this connection, we can spend our whole lives missing the quiet signs that are actually guiding us toward a more meaningful path. So, let's pause. Are you living the life you truly want? Or are you stuck in a version of life shaped by expectations that aren't really yours? That feeling of disconnection might be rooted in not seeing the pattern, silently shaping your journey. Jung once said that when we ignore our unconscious, it finds other ways to get our attention through dreams, illness, or repeating life situations. So if you find yourself facing the same challenges over and over, or battling something invisible, maybe it's time to listen to what your birth itself is trying to tell you. Let's look at Pedro's story. For years, Pedro thought he was on the right track. He climbed the ladder as an executive, earned a great salary, and was well respected. Just as he was about to land a big promotion, everything started to unravel. Out of nowhere, Pedro had a panic attack. The job he loved suddenly became unbearable. Within days, his world felt like it was coming apart, and he didn't understand why. Pedro was born in September, a month deeply connected to the archetype of perfectionism and the search for order. From childhood, he learned to be responsible, to meet every expectation, to strive for excellence. For a long time, that energy helped him succeed. But the shadow side of perfectionism, relentless self-criticism, caught up with him. He never let himself celebrate his successes. He always found something he could have done better. Over time, that pressure built up until it finally broke through. Now, think about your own life. How often have you bottled up your emotions because it wasn't the right time to deal with them? How often have you ignored a quiet voice inside that says, something's not right, just because you thought you needed to be strong? That mindset might seem necessary, but Jung warned us, what we repress doesn't disappear, it just hides, waiting for a crisis to bring it to the surface. But it doesn't have to be that way. Self-awareness can turn a crisis into a turning point. In Pedro's case, when he finally reached out for help, he realized he didn't need to quit his career, he just needed to change how he approached it. He learned to be kinder to himself, to acknowledge his achievements, and to let go of the need for everything to be perfect. By understanding the two sides of his archetype, excellence and paralyzing self-judgment, he found balance again, and as a result, Pedro didn't just recover. He became a more empathetic, supportive leader, because now he understood what it meant to set healthy limits for himself and for others. So, which archetype is guiding your life? Don't underestimate how powerful it is to know. Some people are born with the energy to lead and blaze new trails, like those born in January or April. Others, like July-borns, are deeply sensitive to the emotions of others, a gift that can lead to burnout if not managed wisely. December often carries a bright, optimistic energy, but sometimes those born in that month can lose their way if they depend too much on outside approval. Now it's your turn. Think about your own birth month. How has it shaped your decisions? Are you living out the bright side or the shadow side of your archetype? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe, like Pedro, you've noticed patterns that haven't made sense until now. Don't be afraid to look at them. Recognizing a pattern is the first step toward changing it. Jung believed self-awareness is like exploring a dark house with a flashlight. You have to be willing to shine that light into corners you usually avoid. One of those corners might be the beliefs you inherited from your birth environment. Maybe you grew up hearing that success only comes through struggle, and you absorbed that as absolute truth. But ask yourself, is that really what you want your life to be about? This is where reflection makes a difference. Pause and ask, what beliefs am I carrying that I've never questioned? Maybe you think you have to be strong all the time, or that you don't deserve rest until every task is done. Often, those beliefs have roots in the archetypal energy of your birth month. But this is the key, they don't have to define you forever. The real power of self-awareness is in recognizing where these influences come from and deciding what to do next. Let's imagine another story. Helena, 52, grew up believing that true love always meant sacrifice. In every relationship, she put her partner's needs ahead of her own. This led to a pattern of unbalanced, unfulfilling relationships where, in the end, she felt used up and empty. Helena was born in February, which is connected to the archetype of empathy and emotional healing. The bright side, she was a wonderful listener and a source of comfort to others. The shadow, she neglected her own needs, quietly eroding her self-worth. It wasn't until Helena recognized this pattern that things changed. She learned that real empathy has to begin with loving herself. She discovered that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-respect, and by caring for herself, she became even more effective at supporting others, but this time in a healthier way. Helena's story is a powerful reminder these archetypes aren't chains. They're opportunities if you're stuck in a repeating cycle. Ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? Jung taught that healing begins when we stop seeing our challenges as enemies and start seeing them as teachers. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you to reflect in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your life that might be linked to your birth month? Don't underestimate the power of sharing your story. You might discover that others are walking a similar path, and together you can find new ways to grow. Remember, every archetype has a purpose. If you learn to work with it consciously, it becomes your ally, not your burden. So, what's next? In our final segment, we'll look how to use your archetype to create real transformation and how to turn your shadows into sources of strength. As Jung said, where your fear is, there lies your power. Now imagine this, you're sitting on a train, thinking you're on a straight path, only to realize there are hidden detours. You think you're in control, but with every new season, you end up somewhere you didn't expect. Does that sound familiar? The feeling of routine, yet being pulled in directions you never consciously chose. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns keep repeating in your relationships, your work, or your emotional life, here's the truth. It's not random. Jung said, the unconscious doesn't just influence our decisions, it creates patterns. And if we ignore them, they'll bring us right back to the same spot. But what does it mean to truly recognize and break a pattern? Take Mariana, 38, a successful marketing professional. On the outside, her life looked perfect, but her relationships always ended in heartbreak. She kept hearing the same line, "You're great, but something just isn't working." Eventually, she realized what all these relationships had in common: her own unconscious fear of rejection. Since childhood, she believed she had to be perfect to be loved. That belief drew her to partners who reinforced it, repeating the same painful cycle. Once she saw that pattern, everything changed. Instead of chasing acceptance, she started asking, what do I want in a relationship? She set boundaries. Within months, she met a partner who respected her as she was. No need for perfection. How often have you felt trapped in patterns beyond your control? A job that always disappoints, friendships that fall apart, or a cycle of overthinking that leaves you stuck. These aren't coincidences, they're signals from within, asking for your attention. Jung called this journey individuation, becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, both light and shadow. Studies show the vast majority of people repeat the same patterns in relationships, usually without realizing it. But the moment you become aware, you can change your life, not just your relationships, but your mental health and even your sense of self-worth. So, ask yourself, could the pattern you're living now be the next to break? When was the last time you questioned if your choices are truly yours, or just echoes of your upbringing or old emotional wounds? Share your thoughts. You might find you're not alone. Jung believed that the archetypes inside us aren't just for study, they're keys to understanding and rewriting our stories. Every person has both light and shadow, and real growth happens when we accept and balance both. Transformation starts when you stop running from your fears and start learning from them. Now's the moment to choose. Will you keep living inside old patterns, or are you ready to take the reins? Remember, where your greatest fear lives, so does your greatest potential. The cosmic dance is waiting for you to find your own rhythm and dance boldly.